Hello, this is Dr. Vicky speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center. It is time to look at the week ahead in astrology. That is the week of starting Sunday, November 5th to 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. Saturday the 11th, if my math is correct. And we'll take a look at that. Now, of course, just to remind ourselves, we are in the month of November, which is an 11 vibration. When we add that to the universal year of 7, which is, of course, the year of figuring out who we are, we get an 18-9 vibration, which is the moon card. And so the moon card has a somewhat well, it's got a very complex meaning. When the moon card comes up in a reading, we can feel things from in the subconscious rising up out of us. It can be connected to our past and past pain and the like. And so we can expect that this is going to be a very emotional month for all of us. And the challenge here is to forgive, to move on, and to not get caught up in the ups and downs that are obviously we're going to be bearing witness to. It's a way of holding the space in compassion without judgment. And it's not an easy task. But let's take a look at the astrology proper. Okay, so we did actually the first week was for just 4 days worth of stuff, but plenty happened. We had a Jupiter Sun opposition. We had a Venus Neptune opposition. We had a Uranus Mercury opposition, all these oppositions, right? All this awareness that we were blessed with, along with Saturn stationing direct. So as we start this week, starting with November 5th, with Saturn is just now starting to move forward in Pisces. So on the 5th, which is the Sunday, we have we have one thing. We have a last quarter moon. I don't always talk about the last quarter moons, but this one is significant because it is part of the lunation cycle that included the new moon, solar eclipse, and the full moon lunar eclipse. And so that lunation cycle is not quite over. Of course, whenever we're dealing with eclipses, they tend to go way beyond the period of time that they're happening in, as the sensitive points of the eclipse get activated by other planets, and we have resonance. So eclipses are about evolving, and we have been in a real press to evolve. We're at the what it feels like is we're at the precipice of the choice of either we're going to evolve through this and grow, or we're going to cower down in fear and have to wait for another opportunity to grow, which comes, but why not take the opportunity now, right? So we have the last quarter moon here, 13 degrees, the sun at 13 degrees of Scorpio and the moon at 13 degrees of Leo. This is the last phase of the lunation that began with that new moon solar eclipse. In Libra, last quarter squares, which this one is about reorientation. So there are things about what happened through this new moon, full moon, eclipse cycle that are that at this point in the cycle, on the 5th, on that Monday, on that Sunday, we're evaluating a reorientation of our relationship with power. So it should be very interesting weekend as we start Monday, the 6th of November. Incidentally, just to show you, this is the tree of life. This is where all the planets are in these signs. And then I also put the days here. So Sunday, we're here in Hokmah. Monday, we're here in Bina. And for those of you who are my students of Kabbalah, that will mean something to you. I'll talk about it a little bit here and there. But this is mainly astrology. So Monday, the 6th of November, vibrating to a 24-6, which is right up here in Bina. This is actually the Queen of Wands. We have Venus making a waning trine to Pluto. Well, how perfect for the divine feminine, right? So Venus and Pluto have they have their relationship. The first aspect of 2023 was a conjunction between Pluto and Venus. And of course, Venus had that retrograde cycle in Capricorn. And she's been really having she's really been moving through the gauntlet, as far as I can tell. Being a Venus person, being female, she's gone through the gauntlet. And this trine to Pluto is a nice flowing opportunity for her to build power. But it can also bring out our more controlling ways of being. So we do have to watch for that. This occurs at 29 degrees of Virgo for Venus and 29 degrees of Capricorn. For Pluto, remember, Pluto is now moving forward and will be going back into Aquarius in January, where it's for most of the year, it's in Aquarius, and then slips back into Capricorn for 2.5 months or so, and then slips out of Capricorn and doesn't come back for another 250 odd years. So we're not going to be around for that, but hopefully we're going to make it through this latest incarnation of Pluto through Capricorn. Remember, the last time Pluto was in Capricorn in this degrees was at the birth of the nation, 1776, guys. Yep. Okay. Anyway, we also have Mercury making a waning trine to Neptune. So we have these two lovely trines by these transpersonal planets, Pluto to Venus, bringing power and to our values and value to our power, perhaps. And we have Mercury and Neptune, which are a bit of an odd couple in that Mercury likes to delineate things and Neptune likes to fuzz things out. But the trine does bring a flow and a psychic ability to all of us. And especially if you happen to have that in your chart, you'll be even more sensitive to psychic impressions. So protect yourself, because not all the psychic energy that's out there is good. If you vibrate to a higher frequency, if you stay in that frequency bubble of the higher intention, and it usually doesn't befall you. But it is important to always try to do your best when it comes to vibrating out the highest and least judgmental energy that you can, which is really hard in these days, I'll tell you. This occurs, the trine of Mercury and Neptune occurs at 26 of Scorpio, with Neptune at 26 degrees of Pisces. This 26 degrees of Scorpio is a bit of a sensitive degree because we do have a Sun Mars conjunction at that degree later in the month. Both these trines for Venus and Pluto and Mercury and Neptune are waning or 240-degree disseminating trines, the point in the cycle where we share our understanding of the issues associated with the planets involved. And of course, with Mercury, we're dealing with communication. Neptune is oneness. Neptune can also be illusion and delusion, but Neptune can be great imagination, right? And then Venus is what we value, and Pluto is power. And also transformation. So we can have a transformation of our values. I think I see that perhaps happening as people watch what's going on in Gaza. People are some pretty, I think, hard and fast opinions are being altered in a way because of the situations that we're watching. That's what I think. I don't know if that's true for everybody, but I can feel that shift. On Wednesday, the 8th, November 8th, 26.8 vibration found here in Malkuth, we have Venus's ingress into Libra. So Venus gets a boost from Pluto, which she certainly deserves, and then she moves into a sign of her rulership. So Venus is finally in a comfortable place, and Venus hasn't been comfortable for a long time. As soon as Venus moves into Libra, it's going to make an inconjunct to Saturn. Saturn is there just at the first degree of Pisces. So any planet that moves into a first degree, depending on what sign it is going to be aspecting that That's Saturn, and Saturn can feel like you're being constrained in a way. So Venus is like, yes, I'm in Libra, and then Saturn goes, oh yeah. Well, inconjuncts can make you uncomfortable, and so you need to make an adjustment. It says Venus inconjunct Saturn, you may have difficulty seeing what you are responsible for in relationships. Consequently, you take on more responsibilities than necessary to ensure the continuation of the relationships. This is about making sacrifices and not really being happy with the relationship, but not willing to let go of a relationship. So if you have that tendency, you might notice it more. But even if you don't have that tendency, relationships that you might get involved with in now, relationships that you might get involved with now may require some adjustments in the future. And it may have something to do with a sense of incongruity between the values that you share with another person. Maybe you're a spendthrift and they're very thrifty. Maybe um, uh, money and things are not important to you, and they want to have an Aston Martin. So there are adjustments to be made. We also have on Wednesday, wow, we have three things on Wednesday. We have Venus ingress into Libra, we have Venus inconjunct Saturn, as it would, and then we have Mercury making a waning sextile to Pluto. This is at 29 degrees of Scorpio Capricorn, with Mercury at that last degree, almost last degree of Scorpio, Pluto at almost last degree of Capricorn. This aspect can offer special opportunities to help reform ourselves and our environment in a more progressive manner. Well, doesn't that sound lovely? We could certainly use that energy, because it seems like we're regressing. But if we could progress, if we could move in a direction that's different and more aligned with what is right and what is true, and what is right with the way we are to treat each other, I think we could go a long way to evolving through this very difficult time that we find ourselves in. On Friday, the 10th of November, happy birthday, Mary. One of my best friends is born on the 10th of November. We start with a 28-1 vibration on that day. We have Mercury ingress into Sagittarius. Mercury, of course, has been in Scorpio. It's like having an incisive tongue, as it were, to cut to the quick, to get to the root. And now we have Mercury moving into Sag, which it's not quite comfortable in Sag. Mercury likes detail. Sag can be very general, over general sometimes. And of course, there's always the foot and the mouth disease that happens when Mercury goes into Sag. But keeping that in mind, as soon as it goes into Sag, it meets up with Saturn, like everything does, only this time it's a square. So we have a square between Mercury and Saturn at that first degree of Pisces. Still pretty powerful, because it's barely moving forward. And so even though it's starting to move forward and things are starting to get unstuck, there's a lot of entropy and a lot of inertia and a lot of sort of like things to move out of the way here. So, and so it's going to take a little while. So it's a last quarter crisis in consciousness square. So we're questioning authority. We're questioning, maybe we're starting to think that we may be able to be in reorient the ship, change the direction of the ship in the direction of something that's more efficient, maybe, and more progressive. This is the 3/4 point of the synodic cycle, where we must reorient and turn away from old patterns. So this deals with the way we think, old patterns around the way we think, especially the way we think about authority. On Saturday, the 11th, this is the 11/11 portal, guys. I will have a reading for that, by the way. And it happens to be a 29/11 vibration. We have Mars making an opposition to Uranus. This is probably one of the more difficult and explosive energies of the whole month. because we're dealing with Uranus, which is unexpected. We don't know what to expect with Uranus and Mars. And Mars is in its sign of its rulership in Scorpio. So oppositions in their nature can be very confrontational and create a lot of tension. And we have a lot of tension in fixed signs. So fixed signs are very deeply emotional. They sometimes have trouble changing their feelings about things. It's almost like you have to die to the old feeling and be reborn to the new. Well, that's really what this is about anyway. This is about a process of transformation that we need to go through. This is a fruition point or the halfway point in the synodic cycle that between Mars and Uranus, illumination and clarity. This cycle began back in 2022 when Mars and Uranus conjoined on the 1st of August, 2022, at 19 degrees of Taurus. That was a 15-6 vibration that day, and that is the devil card. So what are we chained to, right? And, but the Sabian symbol for this degree is a new continent rising out of the ocean. And at the same time that we had this initial conjunction of what is in a fruition right now, that particular Mars-Uranus conjunction was conjunct the North Node in Taurus. So what was seeded at that time has come to fruition in the direction of building the new earth. Okay, so that's really what that symbol is kind of symbolic of. And we can see here that on that day we're back up here in Bina. Bina is the place of gestation. This is the divine feminine. This is the womb which we all grow in the dark. This is where we gestate. So this is a very potent day and a potent time. Really step back. Even if you're angry, just step back from it. You don't want to get involved in any kind of back and forth with this because it can be quite dangerous. Okay, so let's take a look at each one of these. You know what I didn't do though? I usually do this as a slideshow, and I didn't do it this time, but I will. Come on now, let's do a slideshow. All right, so let's continue. Now we're going to look at each one of these separate, well, most of them separately. Okay, here we go. All right, so we're looking at this last quarter moon. Again, I don't usually put the last quarter moons on, but because it was part of the synodic cycle, it dealt with the new moon and the full moon and the eclipses, I figured I would add it. So here we can see the moon in Leo, the sun in Scorpio. This is a chart for the US, so the sun in Scorpio in the second house, values square the 11th house. This is probably has to do with the fight between trying to get money for Israel and Ukraine and the like with the new Speaker of the House, Johnson, right? Mike Johnson. But so we have a last quarter moon, a crisis in belief, a time for reorientation, turning away from old patterns. This is part of the lunation cycle, which began with that new moon in solar eclipse at 22 degrees of Libra. Sabian symbol, a child giving birds a drink at a fountain. A cycle which flowered at the full moon lunar eclipse at 6 degrees of Taurus Scorpio. The moon at 6 of Taurus, a cantilevered bridge across a deep gorge opposing the sun at 6 degrees of Scorpio. The gold rush tears men away from their native soil. This symbol, this tearing away from the native soil is really about sort of moving away from home to make your fortune. So you're sort of moving away from home. While this the moon energy here, the cantilevered bridge, if you read the symbol in Dane Rudger's book, he really is talking about how when people work together, they can overcome and have these feats of technology that can help to bring a community together, that we can build so do we want to build bridges within and ways to connect or do we want to rush off to another place and have our adventure there, a gold rush, as it were? So do we want to put the energy at home, or do we want to put the energy out far away from home? And this is not, and this is where we're making our decision, right? These are the crisis in consciousness that we have. So now we come to this final crisis point at the sun of 13 degrees of Scorpio. An inventor performs a laboratory experiment, driving urge towards achievement, which is at the root of all civilization. The key word here is the ability to relate seemingly unrelated facts. Square, the moon, an old sea captain rocking himself on the porch of his cottage, the quieted mind recollections of crisis and journeys. And I think it's quietude, right? That's the word. Oh, quiet recollection. So we have this square with the moon recalling the past, which is very much a moon thing, and the sun in Scorpio saying, let's try some new things. Let's try some new things. So we have this sort of challenge between the future and the past. Like, do we focus on what we've done in the past, or is it time to build a new future? Now, of course, we know that it's time to not necessarily do it the way we did it in the past, but reevaluate the way that we've done things in the past in order to move forward. And that's part and parcel to the fact that Pluto is square the nodes, and the resolution node is the south node in Libra. And so we need to look at the laws. We need to look at how we've related. We need to look at issues of war and peace, and how are we going to do it a little bit differently. And it seems as though I'm not sure we've learned that lesson, certainly in the United States. All right. Sorry about that. I don't know what I did. I was pressing all the wrong buttons. All right. Let's go to the next one. Okay. The Venus trine to Pluto. Remember, I said this is nice. It's a nice for Pluto. So this synod began back on the 1st, as I said, the 1st of January. It was a 10-1 vibration. 1st of January 2023 vibrated to a 10-1, which is the Wheel of Fortune. So we're starting with this energy of change in the Wheel of Fortune. It culminated this particular conjunction, which was at 28 degrees of Capricorn, the same degree as the Pluto in the United States, a large aviary, which really speaks of an ability to listen to all the different voices that are contained in an area, right? And that's sort of what America is. It's many, many different various voices trying to, stay together in a cohesive democracy, which is we're not doing too good on that, but there are reasons for that, and I think that's going to improve, and hopefully we can save the democracy, because democracies don't always last. Didn't last in Greece, but it was the first place where they had democracy, and so America is kind of an experiment for large scale democracy. We'll see how we do on that. I know where my prayers go. So this particular conjunction culminates at the opposition between these two planets. We had an opposition on the 5th of June, which actually vibrated to the moon card, which is the vibration we're in this month, right? And it occurred at 1 degree of Leo in Aquarius. At this point, Pluto had moved into Aquarius. So we had Leo. We had Venus in that 1st degree of Leo. Venus at 1 degree of Leo, blood rushes to a man's head as his vital energies are mobilized under the spur of ambition. Posing, 1 degree of Aquarius, in an old Adobe mission in California. So there's this opposition between the very, very egoic and, my way or the highway, in some cases, Leo energy, in opposition to this energy of Aquarius, where we have this mission that was built by the hands of many people, and that has sustained itself over the years. We can still see the mission, even though it's very old. So it's like the what people have done together outlives the actual people that did it together. And you see that when you go to Europe and you see all these beautiful cathedrals, and you're like, how did they do this in like 1500s, right? You're like wondering. They had a lot of people doing it. That's how they did it. Now we have Venus at 29 degrees of Virgo. This is the trine. So now this is the flow of energy. The seeker after occult knowledge is reading an ancient scroll which illumines his mind. After the crisis, one should seek to realign the renewed consciousness with the primordial revelation of the truth of man in a flowing aspect with 29 degrees of Pluto, which is a woman reading tea leaves, the ability to see signatures of hidden meaning in everyday occurrences, drawing one's attention. So both of these symbols deal with an ability to see using our extrasensory perception. So this will, in fact, be a very powerful time for that. We also have to kind of look here, as we look at this, we do have Uranus here. Now, this is very wide. This is actually a little wider than would be an actual grand trine, but it's still, I would still include it. So we have Uranus, Pluto, and Venus. And so, of course, we had just recently a Uranus trine Venus as well. So Venus is still sort of vibrating from all its experiences with these transpersonal planets, which requires Venus to include more people, right? Raising more boats in a way, because it's not just what's in front of you, but it's the society and the culture in specific. All right, let's continue. On Monday the 6th, this is when we have Mercury make the trine to Neptune. Remember, we have all these lovely trines. This cycle began at the Mercury-Neptune conjunction. This is a yearly cycle, so it happens every year. And it occurred at 28 degrees of Pisces. It says, watching a very thin moon crescent appearing at sunset, different people realize time has come to go ahead with their different projects. The fruit of which was brought into our awareness. So that was the initial conjunction. It's like, all right, now let's do what we're good at. Let's work on what we're good at. That was the seed that was planted. So then we have the culmination of that seed in the full moon, or the full phase of this between these two planets. And once we have the fruit of what was planted at the new moon, the fruit comes out at the full moon, and then we have to take that fruit and we have to disseminate it and feed it to the people, to change society, to show society what have you learned through this cycle and what can be helpful to you. Now, it doesn't mean that people are going to necessarily accept it, but it is there. And the trine is a trine of understanding. So, and it's a very psychic trine. So we have this Neptune Mercury flow of energy coming from cosmic consciousness. So this is when it's real important to tune in to the higher levels. This is an opportunity for us to connect with spirit and the unity of Neptune, as it were. So the fruition occurred at the opposition. That occurred on the 2nd of October, which was a 19-1 vibration, which is the sun card. So something got illuminated at that time. And the opposition was with Neptune still at 26 degrees. It had moved back and forth, but it was back at 26 degrees. So that symbol stays the same. And the opposition, which is the fruit of this, in this case, the Mercury side of things, we have Mercury at 26 degrees of Virgo. A boy with a censer serves as a priest, serves the priest near the altar, the first stage of actual participation in the great ritual of planetary evolution. So that was came into fruition. So we had the seed about sort of figuring out what we need to do, because you are unique, you are uniquely fit for what you're here to do, right? Because that's what you're doing. And then we have the opposition, where it comes up that there's some sort of spiritual, perhaps psychic opening with this opposition, an awareness that this is serious and this is actually some sort of sacred initiatory process that we're going through. Now we're at the trine, so we're at that 240-degree trine, and we're still, Neptune is still at 26 degrees of Pisces, so that remains the same. And the lesson, the dissemination, after the fruit's been offered, the dissemination of how perhaps we can work together to do this, is at 26 degrees of Scorpio at American Indian making camp after moving into a new territory. And this is important because this is really the fruit of this and the understanding that we glean from our connection to spirit, at least at this point. It says the ability to adjust swiftly to a new situation by tuning into its requirements. He who lives in harmony with nature, moving on as new needs arise, finds himself intuitively at home everywhere. He does not make demands upon life, for he has identified himself with the great rhythms of the biosphere and he functions at peace with what they produce. This is the message of the American Indian culture, which European invaders so wantonly and meaninglessly destroyed nearly everywhere. Western man has lost faith in life because he wants to dominate and enslave manifestations. Key words here are peaceful adaptation to nature through the adapting of efficient functioning in any life situation. So this is about really being willing to go through the mutations that you need to go through, make the changes that you need to go through, adapt to the situation you find yourself in. We cannot hold on anymore to the past. We can no longer hold on to the sides of the river. We have to push ourselves in the middle and go with the flow. And that's what I think this in part is trying to tell us. All right, hold on one second. I just did something. I keep pressing all the wrong buttons here. I think I would know by now. All right. And we have Venus's ingress into Libra. As I said, she's very happy to be in Libra. But as you can see, she's not in Libra very long before she comes up against Saturn. Venus ingress into Libra is a sign of its dignity, fairness in relating. Well, there's a thought for you. And so the Sabian symbol for Libra is in a collection of perfect specimens of many biological forms. A butterfly displays the beauty of its wings, its body impaled by a fine dart. The original notation of what the clairvoyant had seen indicated a butterfly made perfect by a dart through it, suggesting a process of perfection through sacrifice. You know, Libra is a point in time. It's a point of equilibrium. It's something that we aspire to, but it's something very hard to hold. And so when planets go into Libra, there's a lot of this happening, right? A lot of this happening, one side, the other, always weighing with Libra. The merely human individual is made sacred, becoming the pure embodiment of an archetype. So that's the symbol for this first degree. Shortly after the ingress, Venus inconjunct Saturn at 1 degree of Pisces. The inconjunct is a 210-degree inconjunct, one that requires self-mastery. This aspect is centered around the use or abuse of intense desire and willful emotionality. We are here to eventually make long-lasting adjustments on our feeling level. And that's from the Dynamics of Astroanalysis by Bill Tierney. This is actually the energy of the actual aspect. And then you add the two planets associated with that, and we're dealing with Saturn, which can hold things back, right? It can be depressive, and Venus, which is about love and pleasure and all the Venusian things. So we're going to feel like, hey, we finally got into Libra. And then Saturn's going to come and say, yeah, well, it's not going to be as easy as you think. You need to make some adjustments. and you need to master yourself. The Sabian symbol for 1 degrees of Pisces. In a crowded marketplace, farmers and middlemen display a great variety of products. This symbol refers to all that can be gained from social interplay. Social interplay. On Wednesday, the 8th, Mercury makes a waning sextile to Pluto. We can see it right here. And we can see that Mercury is moving towards Pluto. So this is a 300-degree sextile. This stimulates an opportunity for progressive change. Hopefully we can do that in the situation in our country and also in a situations that we find ourselves out in the world. You know what I'm talking about. This synodic cycle began on the 10th of February 2023. Another 19.1 vibration, the sun illumination, right? And we have it at 29 degrees of Capricorn, a woman reading tea leaves. This is about opening up our third eyes, guys. Seeing the symbols, the signs are there. You just have to open your eyes to them. You don't have to watch the news. You could just go out into nature and see the changes and listen to what nature is saying to you. Or go to an ashram and meditate and see what the higher self or what your connections, we need to stop and listen. We need to stop and listen. The ability to see the signature of hidden meaning in every occurrence, drawing one's attention, clairvoyance. Now we are at that 300-degree sextile, the nature of which is progressive and egalitarian, raising all boats, as it were. We have Pluto at 29 degrees of Capricorn and Mercury at 29 degrees of Scorpio. Sabian symbol for the 29th degree of Scorpio is an Indian squaw pleading to a chief for the lives of her children. Love as a principle of redemption. And I cannot really not equate this with what's going on in the Middle East. But we'll see what happens. It is a Page of Wands day, and so this is a message. We're getting a message from Spirit. All right, next aspect is on Friday the 10th. Mercury ingress into Sag. Yay, Mercury into Sag, although some people might not say yeah about that. Of course, Mercury in the sign of the teacher, the philosopher. Sometimes the my way or the highway, and I'm the only one who has the truth kind of way as well. So we can expect to see more people being broad-minded and open and willing to learn some new stuff, and we'll find those who are unwilling to learn new stuff and will not, because we're at a time where we're always going to see both sides of things so that we can make a decision and choice. Which side do we want to align ourselves with? Jupiter, oh, I'm sorry. So 1st degree of Sag, we have retired Army veterans gather to reawaken old memories, the will to reaffirm the values of the struggle upon which civilization and group achievements are founded, perpetration of the spirit of struggle for power. This is the idea that we have to dominate somebody else for power, guys. Now, Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, is in Taurus, and we have the symbol for that it's at 10 degrees of Taurus in this chart, and the symbol is a Red Cross nurse, the compassionate linking of all men. This symbol reveals the feeling of human cooperation at the stage of pure altruism and service to the social whole, on the foundation of Christ's love, agape, or true companionship. Man can reach still a higher level of experience, made possible by the refinement of the substance of his being, his consciousness, and his will. This goes beyond imagination and faith to the future, beyond Christmas tree celebrations, for it implies going into the dark, bringing life and love to the tormented and the deprived, consecration to humanity. This is about compassion and humanitarianism and the need for that. And I pray that when this energy keeps coming up and up and up, we listen. Are you okay? All right. Well, let's see what's next. All right. So now we're looking at Friday, the 10th still, and we have Mercury making a last quarter square to Saturn. Here's Saturn. Here's Mercury, right? Mercury moves in to Sag, just like when what was it? What moved into Sag and then squared uh, Saturn. Oh, this is it. This first thing that moves into Sag. We have Mercury move into Sag. We have Mars move into Sag. We eventually have the Sun move into Sag, and every time planet moves into Sag, it squares Saturn and Pisces. And these are all last quarter crisis and consciousness squares. So this is really when we question authority. This is so we have this last quarter? Is that what I wrote? We have the Mercury last quarter square to Saturn at one of Pisces Sag. This is the point of reorientation between Mercury and Saturn and the structure of our mind. This cycle began back on the 2nd of March 2023 at 30 degrees of Aquarius, deeply rooted, that should say rooted, not booted, deeply rooted in the past of a very ancient culture, a spiritual brotherhood in which many individual minds are merged into the glowing light of unanimous consent. Consciousness is revealed to one who has emerged successfully from his metamorphosis. The fruition of the seeds planted were revealed at the opposition. Again, this is how it works. We had the opposition on the 1st of August. August was quite a month as well. 2023, which vibrated to the Tower card. And we had Mercury at 6 of Virgo, which is a merry-go-round, the first experience of dynamic intensity of life processes and of the possibility of using them to reach a characteristic ego satisfaction, opposing Saturn at 6 degrees of Pisces, parade of army officers in full dress, the dedication of human beings to the service of their community, and assurance that it will be emotionally sustained by the people at large. And now we have this last quarter square where Mercury at 1 degree of Sag says retired army officers gather to reawaken old memories. That's that symbol of power through dominance, as it were, in a crisis producing square to the Saturn at 1 of Pisces, which talks about a crowded marketplace, which symbolizes the health of a community. It depends on its diversity and the different things we all have to offer and share, and how well that community can get along with that energy. And that's really kind of what we want to do. But there's so many communities getting torn apart, either through war or not even war. In some cases, it's just climate change. So there's a lot of disruption of community at this time. And so we're trying to figure out how best to come back together in community in a more fair way. We certainly see how our systems have failed us, and now it's time to reassess and rebuild. And the one that concerns me the most, Uranus opposite Mars. Mars opposite Uranus at 22 degrees of Taurus is the point of illumination. So this is the fruition of the initial conjunction, which occurred on the 1st of August 2022. So last year, that vibrated to a 15-6, the devil card. That's how we started with this. At 19 degrees of Taurus, a new continent rising out of the ocean, the New World Order, or the New World, as it were. The surge of new potentiality after the crisis. There's all of this energy of after the crisis, after the crisis, after the crisis in these symbols. And these symbols were psyched out back in what, the 20s, and Jane Rudger did this book, I think, in the 70s. So we're looking at like symbols that have been around for a long time, and we find ourselves in the midst of these crises that these symbols are talking about. So I find that very interesting. Now we have Mars at 22 degrees of Scorpio, hunters shooting wild ducks, socially accepted release of an individual or group's aggressive instincts. This is why we have things like sports, shooting sports, or just football sports, or any kind of sports where we can get our competitive, aggressive natures out, right? The socially accepted, I said that. This symbol, this in the symbol for Scorpio 22, it is society that willingly accepts, and in accepting ritualizes to some extent, refines the aggressiveness of most individuals. So this is how to sort of focus our aggressive tendencies in opposition to Uranus at 22 degrees of Taurus, a white dove flying over troubled waters, the spiritual inspiration that comes to the individual in the overcoming of a crisis. Here's another one. It is a message from the Holy Spirit announcing a new dispensation. Symbolic scene can be applied to personal crises resulted from emotional upheavals or from the eruption of unconscious forces and impulses into consciousness, if the crisis has been faced in the right spirit. So we're talking about spiritual crisis. At the time, we're talking about having to figure out how to work with our more aggressive nature, all in service to this new earth that's being born at this time. So this is this can be a very challenging day for this. So be careful, especially on this day. Be careful on the roads. If there's protests and you want to go to them, you can go. But when you smell trouble or you feel trouble, you want to get out of trouble with this aspect. I personally would stay away from those kinds of things, but sometimes they're planned for the time, and it is a totally safe thing to do. Just be aware that people are not in their right mind at this time. We are moving through an 18.9 vibration, which can bring up different levels of insanity. All right. All right. So that's the story, Morning Glories. Let me stop the share here. All right. So quite another week, another big week. And the third week is a big week, and the fourth week is a big week. It's just an important time that we find ourselves in. And so let's do the best to be kind to one another, to support each other where we can, to hold people in the grace of light and love. I want to thank you for joining me each week. It means a lot to me. And hopefully you can find these insights helpful, not just in your own personal journey, but in our collective journey. If you would like to support me, you can give me a thumbs up, like the video, share the video, keep me in the algorithm, as it were. If you'd like to be a little bit more hands-on with supporting me, I do have a Patreon page for as little as $5 a month. You can support my work. The more people I can get on my Patreon page, the more I can do specifically for my patrons. And I have to figure out the best way to where my time is best served at this point, because I am completely self-employed. So, sometimes you want to do a lot more than you can. So I'm doing my best. But I do have a couple of series lined up. I just have to record them, and they will be available on the channel, on my Patreon. And I do put out my tarot scopes earlier on Patreon, so they get them a week or two before everybody else does. So if that intrigues you, if you need to know right away what your next month is ahead, then you could do that. Otherwise, if you'd like a reading with me, I do have availability. There are links below for all of that. If it's your first reading, I prefer the 90-minute reading because we can really get to know each other and we can really get in deep with that 90 minutes. If it's just an update, you can choose between 90 minutes or 60 minutes, however long you want to talk to me. I do try to keep my prices relatively inexpensive, so or relatively reasonable, so people have the ability to get one. Nothing like self-knowledge. Nothing like it. All right, guys, take care. I'll see you again next week. It's been a tough week. I'm pretty tired, and I'm gonna go kick my feet up and enjoy the rest of my weekend. Take care, everyone. Namaste.